Yes, indeed, there it is. That music confirms that it is time for my thoughts of the week. And I thought I'd focus this week on productivity. Following Jeremy Hunt's Noble speech on Friday, we'll just look at a bit about productivity and government spending, maybe a little bit of government waste, because the government's currently spending around £1 trillion, in fact just over, of our money every year. It's hard to imagine that much cash, except to know that it's a huge amount of cash. And if you saved just 5% of it, it's a bit like saving £5 in 100 of your weekly or monthly household budget. If you save £5 in 100, you save £50 billion. That's real money. That's how you get your taxes down. Now, we've all seen areas of waste in government spending, but I came across a new one this week that I thought was quite remarkable. It actually left me speechless. And here it is. Someone who, working for the BBC, a young man, his wife joyfully, happily, recently gave birth, and this young man was able to enjoy some paternity leave. I just want you to have a guess. How much paternity leave, working for the BBC, was he entitled to? Now, I remember, I'm 58. I think I took a matter of a few days with my children. But this young man was entitled, no, what do you think, it's 1 week, 2 weeks? No, keep going. 4 weeks? Surely not more than 4 weeks. Hang on. What about 8 weeks? No, keep going. 10 weeks? I've lost track now. Am I in weeks or am I in months? 2 months? 3 months? It can't be more than 3 months of paternity leave. Paid paternity leave at the BBC that we all pay for. No, it's not 3 months. Try 4 months. 4 months? Surely not. That's ridiculous. How can you be productive if you get 4 months paternity leave? No, it wasn't 4 months. Yes, you got it, folks. It was obvious, wasn't it? 5 months. 5 months paternity leave. Lucky him. But who's paying? Who's paying for that gentleman to have 5 months swooning at the newborn? Lovely, glorious. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. Where's the productivity in that? That's just one tiny example. But if that's going on at the BBC, what's to say it's not going on across vast chunks of the public sector? It feels to me like a sort of a complacent decadence of largesse, that you can just pay someone, plus all the benefits, for months and months and months on paternity leave, and expect us to be a productive economy, a low-tax economy. It doesn't compute, does it? So Jeremy Hunt, when he spoke on Friday about us being one of the most prosperous economies in Europe, I'm sorry, folks, and I know it'll upset some of you, but you don't become a prosperous, productive economy sitting on your backside at home for 5 months being paid to do nothing on paternity leave. Where is the efficiency? Where is the productivity and the output from that? He spoke of growth. How can you grow if you're being paid to sit at home to do nothing for months on end? He spoke of a high-wage, high-skill economy. How can that happen if you're being paid in the public sector to sit at home to do nothing for months and months on end? This is just one tiny example, folks, but it is symptomatic of why we have a high tax, high spend, wasteful spend, low growth, low productivity economy where almost nothing works. He did then refer to other things, such as the fact that we could be a clean energy, lots of renewables, 40% of renewables last year. He didn't mention that we've got about the most expensive energy in the Western world. He didn't mention that earlier in the same week we ran out of electricity in this country, despite sitting on centuries worth of energy treasure. He didn't mention that, did he? He didn't mention that the wind turbines that make that renewable energy, most of them are made in China, using, guess what? Cheap coal-fired electricity. But there's some interesting things I've been learning about this, and we'll be talking about it later in the show, that actually when China's building its new coal-fired power stations, actually it is using the latest technology. So you can have high efficiency, low emission coal-fired power stations. That's what they're building in China. That's what they're using in Japan. It's what they recently built, amazingly, in the United States. So they're using cheap electricity, using coal, to sell expensive kit to the United Kingdom in order for the United Kingdom to produce expensive electricity. Do you get where I'm going with this? How can you have a prosperous economy if actually you're shackling our industry with uncompetitive behaviour, uncompetitive costs, such as high energy costs? It doesn't compute. What's happening is actually low-cost countries like China with low energy costs are taking our jobs and money. Surely we should be copying their fine example. Jeremy Hunt did admit that we have actually got a productivity problem. But in my view, this starts in the civil service and organisations like the BBC. And I think I've just found one of the reasons why. And then you look at the civil service. Well, I'll be talking later about some of their performance. The fact they're trying to block, for example, one of Rishi Sunak's key priorities about stopping the boats. No sign of the legislation that Sunak promised. 1 month on, how long does it take? If I instructed a set of lawyers to produce a new piece of legislation and it was my key priority, trust me, it would be out in a week. A week. Here we are a month later, not a single sign of it. Another example of an inability to be productive, the so-called EU retained law bills, getting rid of some 4,000 EU laws, reviewing them. Supposed to be gone by the end of 2023, but now it's all too difficult. It's all a bit too tricky, all too many laws. Now they say it's got to be the end of 2026. Let me tell you, give me 10 good people. I'll tell them you've got to get through 2 a day. Between 10 of you, that's 100 a week. 40 weeks, job sorted. 3 months to spare before the end of 2023. You could have a programme running alongside it of working out what legislation you do want to keep, tweak, adjust, fine, ditch the rest. I'd have it sorted in 9 months, not 4 years, for heaven's sake. Where's the productivity in that? Jeremy Hunt spoke of the need for lower taxes, and yet he's the bloke who's just increased the taxes under the guidance and leadership and tutelage of the Prime Minister. He's the bloke who's lifted them to the highest level for 70 years. He's like Pinocchio. You can't trust a single word the man says. It's unbelievable, but now we know why. You need higher taxes in order to pay people to sit at home for 5 months. He said, literally, he quoted this: high taxes directly affect the incentives which determine decisions by entrepreneurs, investors or larger companies whether to pursue their ambitions in Britain. So what are you going to do about it, Mr. Hunt? No answer came forth. No solutions. Why would any company want to invest in the UK if we've got the highest taxes for 70 years, both personally and also very high corporate taxes, and with very high energy prices, unlikely to come down? He did speak of a restraint of government spending, and yet the truth is we've got the highest government spending ever. No plans to cut them whatsoever. Gutless, spineless, useless. Maybe someone's been listening in Number 10 to the speech I gave at the beginning of the year, talk about the need to get millions of the 5.2 million out of work benefits back into work, because Jeremy Hunt spoke about this. He spoke about the economic inactivity, the tragedy that I've spoken about. He used the word 6 million people on out of work benefits, not in work, who potentially could be in work. And yes, we always want a secure safety net for those genuinely vulnerable, genuinely sick, genuinely in need. But being on benefits is not a lifestyle choice. But again, from Mr. Hunt, no detail, just waffle and spin. And my question to you is, do you believe any of it? What's the point of giving such a speech if there's no detail and if there's no evidence whatsoever that you're going to do anything at all about it? Truly unbelievable. I'll put up a picture a little bit later of the backdrop to Mr. Hunt's speech. I mean, he's not exactly the most charismatic, finest orator the country's ever seen. He's no Churchill. But when you see this picture of the backdrop, I mean, it made grey look interesting. It made black look colourful. Just unbelievable. What was the point of this speech? We're not going to become a high-wage, high-growth economy, Mr. Hunt, if people in the public sector are paid to sit on their backside for months and months and months. This is symptomatic of a nation that's allowed itself to become decadent, complacent, and idleness for too many people has become a way of life. We've got to stop it. It's unacceptable. And here endeth my Sunday sermon.